Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, where we're tiptoeing through the history of the universe on the strength of Srila Vyasadev's realizations and Shukadeva Goswami, his son. You know, when Shukadeva Goswami came into this world, while he was in his womb, by Krishna's arrangement, he became fully self-realized. And he didn't want to come out from the womb. So he stayed there for a long time, and Vyasadeva talked to him. You know, and you can imagine how the mother felt. We can't even imagine how the mother felt. But anyway, and then finally Vyasadeva went to Krishna personally and said, you got to talk to him and get him to come out. So Krishna came and he said, look, I promise you, you won't get attracted by Maya, because he was self-realized. He knew that he wasn't his body, but he hadn't become yet attracted to Krishna. But when he heard Krishna's voice, he became attracted enough and he came out. But by that time he was, all right, you ready for this? All the women's going to freak out because you can't believe it. He was 16 years old. So he came out and he just ran away. Vyasadeva said, wait a second, you can't go, I have something to teach you. Because he knew, Vyasadeva knew, that Shukadeva was destined to speak the Bhagavatam and bring the sound into the world. So then he didn't know what to do. He was chasing him and Shukadeva just ran away. So then there's in the Puranas there's a detail that describes how he sent a few of his disciples to go out to where Shukadeva was going, and kind of hide. And when he walked by, he spoke a few verses from the Bhagavatam. And when he heard it, he became really interested. And then he went back, and he heard all 18,000 verses from his father, memorized them, and then showed up right at the right time when Parikshit Maharaj was sitting there, waiting for the right idea about what to do at the time of death. And that's kind of how the Bhagavatam came into the world. Although it's eternal, but that's how it manifested itself at this particular Kali Yuga in the world. So we're following this along, and we're all getting enlightened on all levels about what this material world is and what the spiritual world is and who we are and what material energy is and what all the relationships are and how we're supposed to see things and how we're supposed to... Anyway, so, and we're all becoming, as I said to Camille as she came in, I haven't seen her in a long time, and this is like it's becoming a very deeply enriched family. Just by us hearing the Bhagavatam together like this, we make tangible spiritual advancement. Even if we have nothing else, even if we're not scholars, or it doesn't depend on any material qualification. Just by hearing in the association of other sincere devotees. So that's what we're doing. Srimad-Bhagavad Purana, Srimad-Bhagavatam. So welcome to all of you out in cyberspace. We're up to about 1,375 now and counting. So let's hear Sanatana Goswami's glorification of this fantastic scripture, the nectar, the ripened fruit of the Vedic literature. Srimad-Bhagavatam, Mahima Stotram, these are the prayers glorifying this Bhagavatam. We'll explain what it is. It goes like this. Sarva Shastabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwan Doditaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Srimad-Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Marika Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Man Nishtadaka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu Saduta Dayin Atini Chochata Kada Hanamun Chakadachin Mam Premda Rit Katayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Okay, we reached the fourth canto, 27th chapter. And what's happening now is that this is an allegory. For those of you who haven't been here for a while, I'm going to tell you, get you up to date. This is an allegory, a story that's being told by Narada Muni to King Prachinabarishad, who was a great king of the earth, and he was the grandson of Prithu Maharaj, who was an incarnation of God. So there's very elevated people. But as kings sometimes do, they get a little attached to wealth, to opulence, to women, to politics. This is the nature of Kshatriya. So he got too attached, and he went out to the forest to, this is an allegory. Now Narada Muni is speaking to Prachinabarishad because he's too attached to hear directly about himself. You know, sometimes the false ego doesn't allow us to hear directly about ourselves. So a friend will tell us something about another person, you know, and it's actually talking about us. So it's like that. That's exactly what's happening. So he's telling about Puranjana, imaginary character, and all the different symbolic, poetic similes and analogies and things are going on here. So now his intelligence is likened to the queen. And he went out into the forest to kill animals out of attachment, just lust, just material nonsense, and left his queen without attention. And she became very upset, because that's the way women are, you know, because when you don't pay attention to them, they get a little, you know, they can get a little upset. So she was very upset. So when he came back, he was looking for her and finally found her, and she was all, you know, like lying down on the ground and acting like she was pouting, and etc., etc., etc. So now, Narada Muni is continuing the story. Text 5. My dear King Prachinabarishad, in this way, King Puranjana, with his heart full of lust and sinful reactions, began to enjoy sex with his wife, and in this way, his new life and youth expired in half a moment. Purport. Srila Govindadas Thakur has sung, E dhana yovana putra parijana ite ki ache parititire kamala dala jala jivana talamala bajahon Haripadanitire. In this verse, Srila Govindadas says that actually there is no bliss in the enjoyment of youthful life. In youth, a person becomes very lusty to enjoy all kinds of sense objects. The sense objects are form, taste, smell, touch, and sound. The modern scientific method or advancement of scientific civilization encourages the enjoyment of these five senses. The younger generation is very pleased to see a beautiful form, to hear radio messages of material news. This was before internet. This was written before the internet. So then it was radio messages. Now it's something else. Material news and sense gratificatory songs, to smell nice scents, nice flowers, to touch the soft body or breasts of young women, and gradually touch the sex organs. All of this is also very pleasing to the animals. Therefore, in human society, there are restrictions in the enjoyment of the five sense objects. If one does not follow, he becomes exactly like an animal. Thus, in this verse, it is specifically stated, Kama Kashmala Chetasa. The consciousness of King Puranjana was polluted by lusty desires and sinful activities. In the previous verse, it is stated that Puranjana, although advanced in consciousness, lay down on a very soft bed with his wife. This indicates that he indulged too much in sex. The words navam vaya are also significant in this verse. They indicate the period of youth from age 16 to 30. These 13 or 15 years of life are years in which one can strongly enjoy the senses. When one comes to this age, he thinks that life will go on and that he will simply continue enjoying his senses. But time and tide wait for no man. The span of youth expires very quickly. One who wastes his life simply by committing sinful activities in youth immediately becomes disappointed and disillusioned when the brief period of youth is over. The material enjoyments of youth are especially pleasing to a person who has no spiritual training. If one is trained only according to the bodily conception of life, he simply leads a disappointed life, because bodily sense enjoyment finishes within 40 years or so. After 40 years, one simply leads a disillusioned life because he has no spiritual knowledge. For such a person, the expiration of youth occurs in half a moment. Thus King Puranjana's pleasure, which he took in lying down with his wife, expired very quickly. Kama Kashmala Chetasa also indicates that unrestricted sense enjoyment is not allowed in the human form of life by the laws of nature. If one enjoys his senses unrestrictedly, he leads a sinful life. The animals do not violate the laws of nature. For example, the sex impulse in animals is very strong during certain months of the year. The lion is very powerful. He is a flesh eater and is very strong, but he enjoys sex only once a year. Similarly, according to religious injunctions, the man is restricted to enjoy sex only once a month after the menstrual period of his wife. And if the wife is pregnant, he is not allowed sex at all. That is a law for human beings. A man is allowed to keep more than one wife because he cannot enjoy sex when the wife is pregnant. If he wants to enjoy sex at such a time, he may go to another wife who is not pregnant. These are the laws mentioned in Manu, Samhita, and other scriptures. These laws and scriptures are meant for human beings. As such, if one violates these laws, he becomes sinful. The conclusion is that unrestricted sense enjoyment means sinful activities. Illicit sex is sex that violates the laws given in the scriptures. When one violates the laws of the scriptures or the Vedas, he commits sinful activities. One who is engaged in sinful activities cannot change his consciousness. Our real function is to change our consciousness from Kashmala, sinful consciousness, to Krishna, the supreme, pure as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan. Krishna is the supreme pure, and if we change our consciousness from material enjoyment to Krishna, we become purified. This is the process recommended by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the process of Cheto Darpanamarjanam, cleansing the mirror of the heart. Text 6. The great sage Narada then addressed King Prachinibarishad, O one whose lifespan is great, Virat. In this way, King Puranjana begot 1,100 sons within the womb of his wife, Puranjani. However, in this business he passed away half of his lifespan. Purport. In this verse, there are several significant words, the first of which are Ekadasha Shatani. Puranjana had begotten 1,100 sons within the womb of his wife, and thus passed away half his life. Actually, every man follows a similar process. If one lives for 100 years, at the utmost, in his family life, he simply begets children up to the age of 50. Unfortunately, at the present moment, people do not live even 100 years. Nonetheless, they beget children up to the age of 60. Another point is that formerly people used to beget 100 or 200 sons and daughters, as will be evident from the next verse. King Puranjana not only begot 1,100 sons, but also 110 daughters. At the present moment, no one can produce such huge quantities of children. Instead, mankind is very busy checking the increase of population by contraceptive methods. We do not find in Vedic literatures that they ever used contraceptive methods, although they were begetting hundreds of children. Checking population by contraceptive method is another sinful activity, but in this age of Kali, people have become so sinful that they do not care for the resultant reactions of their sinful lives. King Puranjana lay down with his wife, Puranjani, and begot a large number of children, and there is no mention in these verses that he used contraceptive methods. According to the Vedic scriptures, the contraceptive method should be restraint in sex life. It is not that one should indulge in unrestricted sex life and avoid children by using some method to check pregnancy. If a man is in good consciousness, he consults with his religious wife, and as a result of this consultation, with intelligence, one advances in his ability to estimate the value of life. In other words, if one is fortunate enough to have a good, conscientious wife, he can decide by mutual consultation that human life is meant for advancing in Krishna consciousness and not for begetting a large number of children. Children are called parinama, or byproducts, and when one consults his good intelligence, he can see that his byproducts should be the expansion of his Krishna consciousness. Text 7. O Prajapati, King Prachinibarishad, in this way King Puranjana also begat 110 daughters. All of these were equally glorified like the father and mother. Their behavior was gentle, and they possessed magnanimity and other good qualities. Purport. Children begotten under the rules and regulations of the scriptures generally become as good as the father and mother, but children born illegitimately mainly become Varna Sankara. The Varna Sankara population is irresponsible to the family, community, and even to themselves. Formerly, the Varna Sankara population was checked by the observation of the reformatory method called Garbhadana Sanskara, a child begetting religious ceremony. In this verse we find that although King Puranjana had begotten so many children, they were not Varna Sankara. All of them were good, well-behaved children, and they had good qualities like their father and mother. Even though we may produce many good children, our desire for sex is beyond the prescribed method. Even though we may produce many good children, our desire for sex that is beyond the prescribed method is to be considered sinful. Too much enjoyment of any of the senses, not only sex, results in sinful activities. Therefore, one has to become a Swami or a Goswami at the end of his life. One may beget children up to the age of 50, but after 50 one must stop begetting children and should accept the Vanaprastha order. In this way he must leave home and then become a sannyasi. A sannyasi's title is Swami or Goswami, which means that he completely refrains from sense enjoyment. One should not accept the sannyasi order whimsically. One must be fully confident that he can restrain his desires for sense gratification. King Puranjana's family life was, of course, very happy. As mentioned in these verses, he begot 1,100 sons and 110 daughters. Everyone desires to have more sons than daughters, since the number of daughters was less than the number of sons. It appears that King Puranjana's family life was very comfortable and pleasing. Text 8. After this, King Puranjana, king of the Panchala country, in order to increase the descendants of his paternal family, married his sons with qualified wives and married his daughters with qualified husbands. Purport. According to the Vedic system, everyone should marry. One has to accept a wife because a wife will produce children, and the children in their turn will offer foodstuffs and funeral ceremonies so that the forefathers, wherever they may live, will be made happy. The offering of oblations in the name of the Lord Vishnu is called Pindotaka, and it is necessary that the descendants of a family offer Pinda to the forefathers. Not only was Puranjana, the king of Panchala, satisfied in his own sex life, but he arranged for the sex life of his 1,100 sons and 110 daughters. In this way, one can elevate an aristocratic family to the platform of a dynasty. It is significant in this verse that Puranjana got both sons and daughters married. It is the duty of a father and mother to arrange for the marriage of their sons and daughters. That is the obligation of Vedic society. Sons and daughters should not be allowed freedom to intermingle with the opposite sex unless they are married. This Vedic social organization is very good in that it stops the promulgation of illicit sex life, or Varna Sankara, which appears under different names in this present age. Unfortunately, in this age, although the father and mother are anxious to get their children married, the children refuse to get married by the arrangement of the parents. Consequently, the number of Varna Sankara has increased throughout the world under different names. Text 9. Of these many sons, each produced hundreds and hundreds of grandsons. In this way, the whole city of Panchala became overcrowded with these sons and grandsons of King Puranjana. Purport. We must remember that Puranjana is the living entity and the city Panchala is the body. The body is the field of activity for the living entity, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Chitra, Chitragya. There are two constituents. One is the living entity, Chitragya, and the other is the body of the living entity, Chitra. Any living entity can know that he is covered by the body if he only contemplates the body a little bit. With just a little contemplation, he can come to understand that the body is his possession. One can understand this by practical experience and by the authority of the Shastras. In Bhagavad Gita 2.13 it is said, Dehi nosmin yata dehe. The proprietor of the body, the soul, is within the body. The body is taken as the Panchala Desha, or the field of activities, wherein the living entity can enjoy the senses in their relationship to the five sense objects, namely Gandha, Rasa, Rupa, Sparsha, and Shabda. That is, sense objects made out of earth, water, fire, air, and sky. Within this material world, covered by the material body or subtle and gross matter, every living entity creates actions and reactions, which are herein known allegorically as sons and grandsons. There are two kinds of actions and reactions, namely pious and impious. In this way, our material existence becomes coded by different actions and reactions. In this regard, Srila Narottam Das Thakur states, Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, Kevala Vishara Bandha, Amrita Baliya Keva Kyaya, Nana Joni Sadapire, Kadarya, Bhakshanakari, Tara Janma Ada Pattayaya. Fruitive activities and mental speculation are simply cups of poison. Whoever drinks of them, thinking of them to be nectar, must struggle very hard, life after life, in different types of bodies. Such a person eats all kinds of nonsense and becomes condemned by his activities of so-called sense enjoyment. Thus the field of action and reactions by which one's descendants are increased begins with sex life. Puranjana increased his whole family by begetting sons, who in their turn begot grandsons. Thus the living entity, being inclined towards sexual gratification, becomes involved in many hundreds and thousands of actions and reactions. In this way, he remains within the material world simply for the purpose of sense gratification and transmigrates from one body to another. His process of reproducing so many sons and grandsons results in so-called societies, nations, communities, and so on. All these communities, societies, dynasties, and nations simply expand from sex life. As stated by Prahlad Maharaj, Yan Maitunadi Grihamedi Sukham Hituchjam. Srimad-Bhagavatam 7.9.45. A Grihamedi is one who wants to remain within this material existence. This means that he wants to remain within this body or society and enjoy friendship, love, and community. His only enjoyment is in increasing the number of sex enjoyers. He enjoys sex and produces children, who in their turn marry and produce grandchildren. The grandchildren also marry and in their turn produce great-grandchildren. In this way the entire earth becomes overpopulated, and then suddenly there are reactions provoked by material nature in the form of war, famine, pestilence, and earthquakes, etc. Thus the entire population is again extinguished simply to be recreated. This process is explained in Bhagavad Gita 8.19 as repeated creation and annihilation. Bhutva, bhutva, praliyate. Due to lack of Krishna consciousness, all this creation and annihilation is going on under the name of human civilization. This cycle continues due to man's lack of knowledge of the soul and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 10. These sons and grandsons were virtually plunderers of King Puranjana's riches, including his home, treasury, servants, secretaries, and all other paraphernalia. Puranjana's attachment for these things was very deep-rooted. Purport. In this verse, the word rikta hareshu, meaning plunderers of wealth, is very significant. One's sons, grandsons, and other descendants are ultimately plunderers of one's accumulated wealth. There are many celebrated businessmen and industrialists who produce great wealth and are highly praised by the public, but all their money is ultimately plundered by their sons and grandsons. In India, we have actually seen one industrialist who, like King Puranjana, was very much sexually inclined and had a half dozen wives. Each of these wives had a separate establishment that necessitated the expenditure of several thousands of rupees. When I was engaged in talking with him, I saw that he was very busy trying to secure money so that all his sons and daughters would get at least 500,000 rupees each. Thus, such industrialist businessmen or karmis are called mudhas in the Shastras. They work very hard, accumulate money, and are satisfied to see that this money is plundered by their sons and grandsons. Such people do not want to return their wealth to its actual owner. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 5.29, Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Surida. The real proprietor of all wealth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the actual enjoyer. So-called earners of money are those who simply know tricks by which they can take away God's money under the guise of business and industry. After accumulating this money, they enjoy seeing it plundered by their sons and grandsons. This is the materialistic way of life. In materialistic life, one is engaged within the body and deluded by false egoism. Thus one thinks, I am this body, I am a human being, I am an American, I am an Indian. This bodily conception is due to false ego. Being deluded by false ego, one identifies himself with a certain family, nation, or community. In this way, one's attachment for the material world grows deeper and deeper. Thus it becomes very difficult for the living entity to extricate himself from this entanglement. Such people are graphically described in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 16:3, 13 through 15, in this way: Idam ajamaya labdam imam prapsye manoratam idam astidam abhime bhavishyati punardanam asau maya hatak shatrur hanishe chapadam api ishwaro ham mahambogi sidoham balavan sukhi adyo bijanavan asmi konyo stri sadrisho maya yakshe dakshyami modisha it yagyana vimohitaha. The demoniac person thinks, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future more and more. He is my enemy, and I have killed him. And my other enemy will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am the richest man, surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices. I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance. Krishna. In this way, people engage in various laborious activities, and their attachment for body, home, family, nation, and community becomes more and more deep-rooted. Text 11. The great sage Narada continued, My dear King Prachinabharisha, like you, King Puranjana also became implicated in so many desires. Thus he worshipped demigods, forefathers, and social leaders with various sacrifices, which are all very ghastly, because they were inspired by the desire to kill animals. Purport. In this verse, the great sage Narada discloses that the character of Puranjana was being described to give lessons to King Prachinabharisha. Actually, the entire description was figuratively describing the activities of King Prachinabharisha. In this verse, Narada frankly says, like you, Yatha Bhavan, which indicates that King Puranjana is none other than King Prachinabharisha himself. Being a great Vaishnava, Narada Muni wanted to stop animal killing and sacrifices. He knew that if he tried to stop the king from performing sacrifices, the king would not hear him. Therefore, he is describing the life of Puranjana. But in this verse, he first discloses the intention, although not fully, by saying, like you. Generally, the karmis who are attached, Hare Krishna Nitya, Haribo. Generally, the karmis who are attached to increasing descendants have to perform so many sacrifices and worship so many demigods for future generations and satisfy so many leaders, politicians, philosophers, and scientists to make things go on properly for future generations. The so-called scientists are very eager to see that future generations will live very comfortably. And as such, they are trying to find different means of generating energy to drive locomotives, cars, airplanes, and so on. Now they are exhausting the petroleum supply. These activities are described in the Bhagavad Gita 241. Vyabhasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana bahushaka yanantascha buddhayo vyabhasayinam. Those who are on the spiritual path are resolute in purpose and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. Actually, those who are in knowledge of everything are determined to execute Krishna consciousness. But those who are rascals, mudhas, sinners, duskritina, and the lowest of mankind, naradama, who are bereft of all intelligence, mayaya, parita, jnana, and who take shelter of the demoniac way of life, asuram, bhavam, ashritaha, are disinterested in Krishna consciousness. As such, they become implicated and take on so many activities. Most of these activities center around the killing of animals. Modern civilization is centered around animal killing. Karmis are advertising that without eating meat, their vitamin value or vitality will be reduced. So to keep oneself fit, to work hard, one must eat meat. And to digest meat, one must drink liquor. And to keep the balance of drinking wine and eating meat, one must have sufficient sexual intercourse to keep fit, to work very hard like an ass. There are two ways of animal killing. One is in the name of religious sacrifices. All the religions of the world, except the Buddhists, have a program for killing animals in places of worship. According to Vedic civilization, the animal eaters are recommended to sacrifice a goat in the temple of Kali under certain restrictive rules and regulations and eat the flesh. Just a little point of information. The rule in that idea is you can only do the sacrifice in the dark moon night, so as few people can see it as possible. And then you have to stand in front of the animal and look him in the eye, and with a knife cut the throat and listen to the screaming. And while you're doing it, you have to chant a mantra. And that mantra says, in the mantra it says, now I'm doing this to you, and you can come back, and I agree that in next life you can come back and do the same to me. It's actually a mantra in the religious scripture. So anybody who's stupid enough to keep doing this is going to take so many births as animals you can't count them. But then when you wake, they eventually will wake up because it's so stupid. How many times can you do that before you wonder what's going on here? And in that way, they gradually give it up. So it's for restriction. It's not for unrestricted killing of animals. Okay. According to Vedic civilization, the animal eaters are recommended to sacrifice a goat in a temple of Kali under certain restrictive rules and regulations and eat the flesh. Similarly, They are recommended to drink wine by worshipping the goddess Chandika. The purpose is restriction. People have given up all this restriction. Now they are regularly opening wine distilleries and slaughterhouses and indulging in drinking alcohol and eating flesh. I will tell you a story. I have a very dear friend in Jaipur, Shamsundar Katoria, big guy, and I used to go and visit him regularly. And he took me up to the original temple of Jaipur. It's on a hill. It's called Amber Fort, and there's a deity there of Durga or Ambika, one of a form of Kali, Durga. And so he was a big guy, so I got to go in a special way, it's up in a mountain, and it was during Navaratri. So there's 9 days where they have special pujas for every day for worshipping Durga. So I went up there with him. We went into this, solid marble carved temple room, which was not that big. It wasn't much bigger than this room, maybe twice as big as this room. And there were lots of, worshippers there. And then there was the priests, the Brahmins on the altar, and there was a very beautiful deity of Durga. And they brought out these silver, goblets, and these big men would then bring out of their bags Jack Daniels, and they would pour it into the goblets, and then they would give it to the priest, and the priest would very carefully put it in front of the deity, and say their mantras and mudras, and then they'd bring back the goblet, and the guy would very carefully pour it back into the bottle of Jack Daniels, and this way they got Durga Prasad. So I watched this for I couldn't stay there for very long. I said, Shamsundar, I can't stay here. He says, yes, I know. But it's Navayatri, so we do this once a year. I said, let's go. So we left. So I just said that example because I saw it with my own eyes. And here it says, this is Prabhupada. Similarly, we are recommended to drink wine by worshipping goddess Chandika. The purpose is restriction. People have given up all this restriction. Now they are regularly opening wine distilleries and slaughterhouses and indulging in drinking alcohol and eating flesh. A Vaishnava Acharya like Narada Muni knows very well that persons engaged in such animal killing in the name of religion are certainly becoming involved in the cycle of birth and death, forgetting the real aim of life, to go home, back to Godhead. Thus the great sage Narada, while instructing Srimad-Bhagavatam to Vyasa Muni, condemned the karmakanda, fruitive activities mentioned in the Vedas. Narada told Vyas, Jagupchitam dharmakrite nushashatak subhava raktasya mahan vyatikramaha yad vakyato dharma iti tatastito na manyate tasya nivaranam janaha. The people in general are naturally inclined to enjoy, and you have encouraged them in that way in the name of religion. This is verily condemned and quite unreasonable, because they are guided under your instructions. They will accept such activities in the name of religion and will hardly care for prohibitions. Bhagavatam 1.5.15. Srila Narada Muni chastised Vyasadeva for compiling so many Vedic supplementary scriptures, which are all intended for guiding the people in general. Narada Muni condemned these scriptures because they do not mention direct devotional service. Under Narada's instructions, direct worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as described in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, was set forth by Vyasadeva. The conclusion is that neither the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, nor his devotee ever sanctions animal killing in the name of religion. Indeed, Krishna incarnated himself as Lord Buddha to put an end to animal killing in the name of religion. Animal sacrifice under the name of religion is conducted by the influence of tamaguna, the mode of ignorance. As indicated in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 18:31 and 32, yaya dharmam adharmam cha, karyameva cha, ayatavat prajanati, buddhi sa prartarajasi, adharmam dharmam itiya, manyate tamasavrita, sarvartan viparitangscha, buddhisa partatamasi. That understanding, which cannot distinguish between the religious way of life and the irreligious, between action that should be done and action that should not be done, that imperfect understanding, O son of Prita, is in the mode of passion. That understanding which considers religion to be irreligion and religion to be irreligion, under the spell of illusion and darkness, and strives always in the wrong direction, O Partha, is in the mode of ignorance. Those who are involved in the mode of ignorance manufacture religious systems for killing animals. Actually, Dharma is transcendental. As Lord Sri Krishna teaches, we must give up all other systems of religion and simply surrender unto Him, Sarva Dharman Parityaja. Thus the Lord and His devotees and representatives teach the transcendental Dharma, which does not allow animal killing at all. At the present moment, it is the greatest misfortune that in India, many so-called missionary workers are spreading irreligion in the name of religion. They claim an ordinary human being to be God and recommend meat eating for everyone, including so-called sannyasis. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The truth shall set you free. Okay, text 12. I think I'll stop here. It's almost 7:30. Okay, now we come to our favorite part of the program. It's called the open mic. You know, sometimes they have clubs where they let anybody get up and, I don't know, say their poetry or give their rap or whatever it is that they do. So this is our Transcendental Hare Krishna open mic session. And anything that, yes, Honest John has got something. I can see him there poring over the Shastra.
A quick question.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm curious about Pinda, okay, and it is necessary that the descendants of a family offer Pinda to the forefathers.
Yeah. What that means?
What does that pertain to us? Do we need to do that?
Well, this is why Arjuna, this is a karma kanda rule. The Vedas are a huge, huge body of literatures. You know, hundreds of thousands and millions of verses in all the Vedas. And 94 to 96% of them have to do with karma kanda, rules and regulations for ritualistic performances to improve one's life, either in this life or in on this planet or in higher planets in one's next life. And this Pinda regulation is one of those. It's a Karmakanda section of the Vedas. Then there's the Jnanakanda section, which is very small. It's mainly the Upanishads. They're like appendices on the original four Vedas. There's 108 Upanishads. And they're appended to the different Vedas. And they analyze the difference between matter and spirit and define the absolute truth in different ways from different angles of vision. And then there's the upasana section, and that is about worship of demigods, and particularly about Lord Vishnu or Krishna. And that's very few. And sometimes those who are very attached to the ritualistic performances, and you can see in all the religions of the world now, they've become so attached to their rituals, the very gigantic cathedrals and, fancy outfits and, bells ringing and incense burning and hymns being chanted and everybody, and it's nice. It's a very religious principle, but then they do things that are not actually recommended in their scripture, their own scriptures, what to speak of the Vedic scriptures. So this is the problem, that everybody is attached to the fruits of their work and karma kanda, the karma. They want the fruit of their karma. So this pinda is a ritualistic ceremony in which one, after one's, parents leave and for the forefathers before them, they make a ritualistic ceremony and they offer pinda, and it's a special preparation that they offer to the demigods. And ultimately Vishnu is there because it's Vishnu that is overseeing the ritualistic performances, because the demigods are all parts and parcels of Vishnu. They're all actually devotees of Vishnu. But this is the system in the materialistic sense, that the material world is being maintained by this process of sacrifice. Karma brahmodbhavam vidi, pramakshara samudbhavam, tasmat sarvagatam brahma, nityam jagya pratishtitam. So this verse describes how karma, or sacrifice, is karma brahmodbhavam vidi. The ritualistic ceremonies are coming from the regulations of the scriptures. Karma brahmokshara samudbhavam, and the scriptures are coming from the breathing of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore the transcendence is eternally situated within the acts of sacrifice to Vishnu. So Krishna consciousness is actually transcendental to all of those ritualistic performances. And therefore in the end of the Gita, Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityajya. This is what he means. All these other kinds of dharmas, which I've explained to you, and they're all there in the Gita. Jagyartat kamanonyatra, lokoyam kamabandhana. You must perform your work for the satisfaction of Vishnu. If you don't, karma bandhana, you become entangled in the reactions of your work. And you have to come back again and again and again to bear the fruit. So therefore, we're not karmis, and we're not jnanis, we're bhaktas. And we're not mystic yogis, but we're bhaktas. Yoginam sarvisamisha, madkatenan taratpana. Krishna says at the end of the 6th chapter of the Gita, and of all the yogis, one who always thinks of me in devotion is the best devotee of all, or the best of all. So there's this karma kanda is the gradual process, and the jnana kanda is up here, and the bhakti yoga goes straight to the heart of the issue, straight to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when we worship Krishna, then so many generations before us and after us get benefit. So rather than offer some pinda for a particular place where some of our relatives may have gone, we worship Krishna, and all those relatives before us and after us are satisfied. And more than satisfied, they become spiritually elevated. They become spiritually benefited by our own activities, our own sacrifice. Is that something?
That answers the question. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Yes. It's supposed to be open.
I just wanted to share that today was Ash Wednesday, and Robert was nice enough to take me to church. And but when I first started coming here a few months ago, I was so scared that I was going to lose my connection with Mother Mary or with
Whoever.
Jesus, or
Whoever.
all of those other ones that I loved, and I was scared. But today I went to church and I started to feel the bhakti, that it's no separation, and we chanted Hare Krishna to Mother Mary, and it was still beautiful and sincere, and the love was still there. And I guess I just wanted to share that because the bhakti just opens the heart for any devotion, I guess, to the servants of God, the Krishna.
Well, what you're saying is that there's only one God and there's only one process to please God, and that's devotional service. So the process of singing hymns in glory to God is actually bhakti. It's kirtan, but it's not so precise. It's like if you have a relationship with somebody and rather than call them by their name, you say, "Hey, you." It's like after a while, they say, "Hey," it's like, that's why people who are like businessmen and everything, they always repeat the name of the person. Yes, John, and or yes, Sally, because they feel good hearing the sound of their own name. It's natural. So, it's nice, but it's not as nice as worshiping the personal form of Krishna. That's nicer. But the fact of the matter is that all the scriptures are coming from the same place, but people are no longer following them. They're not following them. Now with the Catholic Church, my God, it's like becoming not just a couple of scandals, it's like a whole systematic thing that they've done, Yes. Dimitri.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
About what we read today, can you tell how people do start to follow the 4 regulational principles?
How do they start?
Yes. What is the process for them to start follow?
Well, first of all, they have to know what they are. I mean, like anything else, all human beings have a sense that they want to worship something supreme, something beyond themselves. Even in what we call primitive cultures, they worship a big mountain, or the lightning, or a huge river, or there's a natural tendency to worship something beyond us, something supreme, something greater than us. So as a result of that, first of all, you have to find out. There's a process of finding out what the regulator principles are. And that's why God comes from time to time. Yuge yuge, paritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya cha duskritam, dharma sangstapanartaya, sambhavami yuge yuge. Krishna comes, 2 purposes: to protect his devotees and to take care of the non-devotees in different ways. Yuge yuge, age after age. And he brings the different regulator principles that are relatable to the culture, to the people, to the group of people that he appears in. And that's how we find out what the regulator principles of religion are. And generally, we're supposed to be trained by our parents. That's why the Varnashram system is so stressed in this whole section. It's talking about how to marry, what the rules, what the regulations are, what to do, what not to do, so that their hearts can become purified. But ultimately, in this age, which is a mess, in case you didn't notice, look around, open your eyes and look around, and you'll see it's a mess. People have no idea what they're doing. They're abusing one another. They're abusing their children. The leaders are abusing the citizens, etc., etc., etc. The so-called religious leaders are abusing their people who were following them, innocent people, children. So there's different ways we find out. First of all, we found out by doing the wrong thing and suffering. When you do the wrong thing, when you break the laws of nature, I mean, we heard a lot of sinful, the Prabhupada was talking about sinful life a lot in these purports. But nowadays we may balk from that. We may be hesitant because of our upbringing. We think sin, and then we get all kinds of, devils flying through the air, and kind of images that we can't. We just don't like it. But laws of nature, that's becoming more easier to hear. You follow the laws of nature, things go okay. We heard, when human society starts killing animals wholesale, which they're doing now, literally billions every year on the earth of animals, innocent animals. They're raised to be killed. Farms, animal farms. So, by misbehavior, the situation becomes so hellish that God takes compassion, like he did when he came as Buddha or Lord Jesus Christ, or what to speak of Krishna himself, or Lord Chaitanya, Mahaprabhu. They come out of compassion, and they explain what the laws of religion are, the regulative principles. Particularly Lord Chaitanya, gave us the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, and then the teachings, how to chant without offense. Because it's described very clearly, and I just read it actually just the other day when I'm reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the audiobook for the DVD. There's this one verse, very nice. Even if you chant Hare Krishna, if you don't learn how to chant without offense, you can chant for a long time, lifetimes, without getting the love of God, the full purification that we're looking for. So we get those regulations according to time and circumstance from an incarnation of God, or for a pure representative of God, the Son of God or the Prophet or some mystic follower of God will give different rules and regulations according to, like in some religions, it's very rules oriented, and the rules are sometimes even a little gross. Like in the Quran it says you should not have sex with your mother. In our culture we don't even think, because I don't know what's happening nowadays, but when I was being raised, nobody would think about having sex with their mother. That's not something you think about. What we can do? It's disgusting. But it's there in the law. You can't do that. That means they were doing it at that time, in that place, under those circumstances. So according to the time and circumstances, the representative of God will give rules that when we follow, it purifies our activities and eventually leads us to the name. And the names are different. There are direct names and indirect names of God. There are indirect names of God which describe the qualities of God, like Allah is all merciful, Jehovah is all powerful. These are different qualities of God that people are worshipping. And they're taught like that because that's all they can hear. And Jesus said, let those who have ears hear. I mean, everybody has ears, but not everyone can hear. So there has to be some piety, there has to be some experience that each of us have, both of what the difference is between piety and impiety, what the difference is. As long as we're in ignorance and passion, then we will mistake what is pious to be impious, and impious to pious, which we read in one of the purports. It's in the Gita. So gradually the rules that bring us to a state of spiritual consciousness, and eventually self-realization, and eventually the personal form of God. They are revealed to us. And these 4 regulated principles, illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, gambling, these are the pillars. These are pillars of that go against the laws of nature. If you do those activities, then you become subject to so many others. They come like one after the other. And if you follow the 4 regulated principles, something happens. You become inclined to spiritual life. It seems mystical, but it's natural. It's completely natural. It's a law of nature. Then, when you come to that point, Krishna will send you Guru. From within your heart, you want to find out more. You want to be spiritually educated. And you may take a birth in a pious family and get more spiritual education. Or in this age, Lord Chaitanya comes with the Panchatattva and just distributes love of God freely, never mind what your qualification or disqualification is. It doesn't make any difference. If you take up this chanting of Hare Krishna and follow these regulated principles and read the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad-Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita, then you are guaranteed to go back to Godhead. That is the mercy of the pure devotee. And with that, I got to stop because it's 7:45. Otherwise, I'll turn into a pumpkin. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you out there in cyberspace. Is there anything for cyberspace tonight?
Someone was asking for the mic, but they didn't pose a question.
Oh, they were asking for the mic, but they didn't pose a question. Wow, now that person's transcendental. Not asking for the mic, but wanting to, okay. Well, now, tomorrow Krishna Maharaj's disappearance day, and they're going to have a program tomorrow at 7, and they want me to speak. So that means we're going to have tomorrow at 5. Whoever can come at 5, come at 5. Whoever can't, see you the day after tomorrow. Okay? But so tomorrow, the reading will be at 5 o'clock. Hare Krishna, Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Narada Muni ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo. Thank you very much.